In about 30 days, PiTech generated nearly the same number of qualified leads that they had from an entire year of cold outreach. Not because of some hack, not because of some better sales trips, but because the offer and acquisition systems finally matched how they actually sell. And in today's video, the CEO of PiTech, Felipe Fernandes, he's going to go over exactly what changed for him, what really surprised him, and why this worked when everything else didn't. So make sure you stick around all the way to the end. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Felipe, thanks so much for hopping on, my man, and sharing your experience of partnering with us over here at Techsuasive. Before we dive into the specifics, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about Pi Technologies and your role over there?
Sure. I'm the CEO of PiTech. We are an outsourced software development shop. Our focus has been in the healthcare space. We've been around for about 5 years, doing a lot of work in regulated industries, but mostly focused on healthcare lately.
Nice. Perfect. Well, before I kind of get into the specifics of our partnership here, Felipe, I want to kind of rewind the clock a little bit and ask you in terms of like what you guys were doing before we started working together to really generate new conversations or pipeline. What was that looking like?
We tried almost everything. We were doing a lot of different outbound attempts with different agencies. We did cold email a few times. We did cold calling. I hired an SDR. We hired a sales consultant to do writing scripts and buying lists, scrubbing lists, doing all of the things to try to drum up demand. And then also spending quite a bit of money on SEO for over a year, trying to get up the Google rankings. And that went out the window once everybody started using LLMs. And so then it's a matter of how do you get visibility in the LLMs? And frankly, I don't know if anybody's really cracked that nut quite yet. And so those were the opportunities that we were trying to pursue in terms of marketing channels and just not having the results that we were looking for.
Yeah, and it's common thing that we hear over here as well, right? A lot of people try different things. I think what separates the people that actually continue to get results, right, when it comes to marketing is as simple as it sounds, not giving up, right? And I've talked to so many different founders and CEOs where they have a bad experience one or two times, or they try something and they're like, well, marketing just doesn't work for our company. And they just kind of just throw up their hands and, say like, this is it. When obviously you need to kind of have those, what I almost call like, you have to pay your tuition in a way, right? You have to pay your tuition on what doesn't work. So you find the thing that obviously does work for you as well. Now, why don't we kind of transition? Obviously, you've tried some different things, right? You tried SEO, cold calling, and all sorts of different outbound tactics. Why don't you just talk to the audience a little bit about what your experience has been like working with us as a team over here at Techsuasive?
Yeah, I think from the beginning, it was very easy to have a conversation about what our goals were. You were very much upfront about what you're good at and whether we were a fit. And in this case, we were a fit for your services. And so the bulk of the work was done initially to try to figure out how to build an offer that will resonate with my cohort that I'm trying to target. And I felt like that process was really tight as far as understanding the opportunities that I think we had in front of us. And then y'all went back and did your magic and came back with some ideas. I liked the iterative process. To be candid, the creative that I saw is something that I question whether it would work, but you said we have experience doing this. Trust me, this is what we've seen works. And I trusted the process and was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because we have a lot of clients that will sometimes be like, are you sure these types of ads are doing well? And I'm like, guys, trust me. We look at the data. We've tested just about everything on the sun. Just let us test this and you'll see. Right. And so it's funny because we get a lot of those reactions that people will say like, hey, like, you sure? I'm like, yes. Is there anything in particular, Philippe, that kind of stands out to you in terms of like how we operate or support you?
Yeah, I think the ability to jump on Slack, ask questions, give you feedback, receive feedback about the quality of the leads that are coming in, the feedback about how the meetings went, being able to share some of the things that are starting to resonate with our audience. I feel like that level of interaction and responsivity has been a really big positive for us to continue to make progress. The weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings that we have, I think is a nice chance to look at the metrics, recalibrate, look at what needs to be adjusted to continue to have success with this. Now, we had one offer that I felt was doing well, but I realized very quickly that the number of leads that you were driving was great. The quality of those leads was not the best, not only because I think I got the offer wrong. We were targeting folks that didn't necessarily, they had an idea, that they wanted to build, solo founders with an idea, not a whole bunch of backing or self-funded folks that are bootstrapped and looking to really just build something incredible with a very limited budget. So after having some of those meetings, you all are willing to help us change or try a second offer. That second offer has just performed much better. The quality of those leads, the opportunities that we've had, the pipeline that it's driven has just been better. And I feel like that came out of the meetings that we were having.
Yeah, that's so important. I always tell people it's like it's never going to be one thing that you can just hit it out of the ballpark the first time that you advertise an offer, right? It's about having those iterations in between and then looking at the data and then the feedback, right? For us, we always preach feedback, and I don't understand how, for example, we talk with other people who say like agencies will meet with them like once a month or once every other month, or kind of just go back and forth over messages. And for us, it's very important to have that feedback from the sales side. It's like, hey, what's going on? Are these calls going well, right? Like we did Felipe, where I was like, hey, like, we may want to just turn this campaign off and then go full into this campaign because it sounds like all the better leads are coming through this. And that's the iterative process that you need to go through as you're obviously building these out and building them out for scale.
Okay, quick note before we continue. If you're watching this and thinking this sounds way too familiar, there's a link below to book a short strategy call with me. Anyways, back to the conversation.
Now, if you could just talk a little bit more about that campaign specifically, that once we kind of, figured out the right messaging with those folks kind of coming through, how many like leads and calls would you say like you're having on a week-to-week basis with that campaign specifically?
Well, I can tell you that over the past year of cold calling and cold email, we served all of the leads that came in through those campaigns, thousands of dollars spent, probably tens of thousands of dollars spent. We were able to get almost the same number of leads over that entire year with about a month's worth of effort and a tremendously lower spend on ads or just on the service in general. We're probably doing about, I'd say, 10 plus leads per week in terms of meetings. Those are probably resulting in half of those. So probably 5 to 6 meetings a week. And then it's on me, right, to figure out how do I make sure that they are fit and we are fit for them. And, the pipeline is growing as a result of that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, right? I always say it's whenever you find that winning offer, you find that messaging, it's like drinking from a fire hose. All of a sudden it's coming in. We had a conversation. I'm like looking at your cost per call and I'm like, Felipe, this is good, right? Like this is a good cost per call. You can continue to scale this, right? And when you have those average deal sizes, that how they come out, the economics make a lot of sense, right? In terms of that. And in terms of like, some of the active opportunities that you're nurturing right now, could you get into those specific, like how many, let's say, deals are in the pipeline? Have you closed any deals? What does that look like?
Yeah, closed one deal, again, verbal. We're still going through legal, but we have acceptance on the terms. And this is one deal within the first 2 weeks of doing work where it was taking me, several months to try to even drum up a meeting that would eventually lead to even sending out an offer. And then we've got 3 other deals that are really looking positive in the sense that I've got a proposal together. We're sending those out and just kind of waiting for some feedback from these folks. So just right away, I can see that, look, with my business, it's about getting in the door, proving yourself, and then expanding from there. So we are the value of these projects initially are small, and more than just that one deal alone, more than pays for the spend that we've done, both on the service as well as the ad spend. And as soon as we get a second deal, assuming we do a great job, which I think we will, then, that's all just the cherry on top after that, because we often establish a long-term relationship with our clients, but it starts with, can you do a good job on this one project, and then grow from there.
And I think that's so important, right? And I think that a lot of tech firms and, people in tech consultancies and IT consultancies, they'll sometimes try to do too much right away before they've kind of built that trust with folks. I think one of the things that you guys are doing well as well is being able to, what I say, get your foot into the door, build that relationship, expand, and be able to turn one project into many more projects that come down the road, right? Instead of trying to be a little bit greedy off the bat. And I think that that's definitely important when you're looking to build something that is scalable. Now, as you kind of look to the future, Felipe, in terms of like the next 6 to 12 months, I know we're talking like, now that we're having conversations like, hey, how is it that we can start to take you out of these calls and put, someone in place for you and start to build out a system that, can basically operate independently of you? Like, why don't you talk a little bit about how you see us being able to continue to help you in your growth in terms of this itself?
Yeah. So my job for the next year is to figure out how to extricate myself out of the sales process. It's one of my big goals for the upcoming year. And that doesn't happen without having a process in place. And I think what we've discussed is from the offer to, them filling out a form to that getting into our system, then us following that process. That's something that we've discussed closely in figuring out how do I document that, and then I can get someone else trained on that process so that I can go focus on the next challenges that we have in the business. But it is something that I can see happening now that we have a consistent pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, when we were doing cold emails, cold calling, we would get a meeting, once in a blue moon. And it's very hard to keep a salesperson motivated or even an SDR if they're not generating enough volume of calls, meetings in order to really, make their OTE or on target earnings. And so this, I think, gives me a path into being able to figure out a repeatable process versus just lumpy deals that are kind of coming in, where we can start predicting a little bit better what our pipeline will be, what's the probability of some of the deals closing. And that predictability allows me to actually put somebody in to help take over some of those efforts and really try to scale this business, but also the sales machine.
Yeah. And it's so important what you said, because I feel like a lot of founders kind of glaze over that. They'll want to hire a sales rep prematurely. And I see this all the time. It's like, oh, well, we hired a sales rep and it didn't work out for us. Like, well, what were you doing in terms of giving him leads? Like, what type of processes did you have in place? Like, what were you giving to that person? They're like, oh, well, we just kind of hired him and slapped him on the butt and said, hey, go and get him. Right. And then it's like, well, yeah, of course that didn't work out. You kind of have to build those processes to at least set them up for success, for the future. And so it's the way that you're thinking about, the way that we've obviously talked about, is being able to have that consistent pipeline and build out the process as the founder first, right? Understand exactly what those processes look like, and then replacing yourself once everything's documented with that salesperson. And yeah, man, I'm excited to continue to have you, grow the business over here. You're a very valued client. We appreciate all that you've done over here. And thanks so much for kind of sharing your experience with everybody, what it's been like working with us. Last question I have before we go, Felipe, is, we get a lot of people that we talk to that are very skeptical, right, of marketing and, companies that can say that they can help them grow. If another company's that kind of is listening to this or evaluating whether or not they should work with us, what would you tell them?
I had a misconception that for a B2B business, the only type of sales and marketing that would work would be either direct messaging or SEO for inbound or cold calling, etc. And once I saw the offer on Facebook, on Instagram, it's like, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here to really target folks that are on these platforms, but it is a B2B offer. And so taking that chance on that was something that I was skeptical of. I didn't know if it was going to work. Mm-hmm. And it has worked beyond my expectations in terms of, again, the number of leads, the pipeline, the actual contracts and deals that we've already sent out. So anybody who's skeptical of doing B2B marketing on Facebook, on Instagram, just paid ads, I would say give it a shot because it's worked for us.
Awesome. Well, Felipe, thanks again, man. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting down here and talking with you. And for whoever's watching, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and take it easy. Ciao.
Cheers.
So the reason this worked for PiTech isn't because they just ran ads. It worked because they stopped relying on hope, referrals, or just a lumpy outbound and built something predictable. So if you're in a similar position and you want to understand what this could look like for your business, there's a link below to book a short strategy call with myself. And if not, no worries at all. My goal with these videos is always to show what real growth looks like behind the scenes. So if you did enjoy today's conversation, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take it easy. Ciao.